Blog Talk Radio.
This is America, a beautiful necklace of rare gems, different colors from different places. If they could speak, you'd hear 171 languages. But the miracle that produced this necklace 233 years ago, in the greatest burst of freedom the world has ever seen, is this thin, fragile piece of string that holds all this diversity together and has made you the strongest and most prosperous nation on earth, allowing us all to remain different but unified as a people. With this, the common bond, the thin, fragile piece of string, I am an American. The enemy within condemns this belief by shouting our differences are our strength. Yes, but only if you continue to be united behind one country, one culture, one language, one rule of law. There is no unity in a pluralistic society unless there is a common bond you all support. You cannot unite around differences. If this common bond is broken by any means, then there can be no common sense, because common history, common values, and common law no longer exist, and you've lost the United States of America, regardless of what state the economy is in. Now, the enemy within say you must destroy American sovereignty, open your borders, and become an international halfway house for the rest of the world, all paid for, of course, by you, which you can no longer now afford. Global democracy, global economy, global governance, lumping all human beings into a homogeneous mankind that does not now nor ever has existed in reality. Convincing you that nationalism and pride in country is extremism. Engage the world, yes, but never surrender your independence to it. The dismantlers of your history, your traditions, your founding principles are the elite brain dead who have redefined the definition of liberalism to mean you serve the world best by giving away America's strength, raising taxes on the 60% of taxpayers who pay for the 40% who pay nothing, reinstigating the welfare state with more giveaway programs that effectively erase all dignity and personal responsibility and declare all minorities are helpless victims, not independent human beings. They've rewritten American history and have already brainwashed 2 generations of your children, taught to blame America first, to criticize before under what or who is breaking our common bond. If you're the one who says our children are our future, but do nothing to stop the shameful disparity of quality of education between suburban schools and inner city schools, with 50% of black and brown children dropping out, becoming drug addicts, alcoholics, unemployable, with an 80% possibility of being a burden to society the rest of their lives, then you are the problem. If you are not on the phone in the school board meetings demanding excellence, but instead are pleading for a breakdown of the common bond with more bilingual education, costing the taxpayer billions of dollars and doing nothing to hasten assimilation, then you are breaking the common bond. Billions of dollars you can no longer afford. If you're all for lowering standards so everyone can pass, pushing stupidity and mediocrity toward graduation, then you are the problem. If you allow the dismantlers to label it anti-immigrant because you demand all newcomers enter legally, learn English, our history, and salute our flag, then you are the problem. It's not about discrimination, immigrant bashing, or a lack of charity. It's about maintaining the glue of your common bond and the rule of law. If you don't rise up and throw out your insane mayors and hypocritical bishops who declare sanctuary cities for lawbreakers, inviting more lawbreakers to come and drink at the well of the taxpayers' money, then you are the problem. If you're a white person who doesn't recognize the effects of slavery and years of welfare dependence have adversely affected black people, then you are the problem. If you're a black person who calls all criticism racist and halt all intelligent discussion, then you are the problem. I wrote the first anti-slavery essay in America in 1775. I founded the first abolitionist society in the country and wrote the first rough draft of the Declaration of Independence, specifically calling for an end to slavery. I know the ugly face of racism, and modern America is not a nation of racists. Opportunity and anti-discrimination laws have leveled the playing field. Take advantage of both and stop thinking of yourself as a victim, and understand all conflicts are simply memories of the past. If you can't get over them, you condemn yourself to be destroyed by them. It's time to put away the race cards and unite behind the common bond. It's the strength without which there is no America. Your brave servicemen and women, black, white, brown, red, and all the colors in between, are giving their lives and their blood to protect you from the enemy without. It's your turn to stand up and defeat the enemy within. Restore your common bond. There have been
Just so
10
you know.
generations of Americans
Hey, what?
since this nation was
We're on
founded. Each
mute
left this
until
country in
this
a little
was
better
difficult.
condition than when they inherited it from their
Just
parents.
so that you know.
Yours
Can you
is
hear
the
me?
first generation at
Yeah.
risk of doing the opposite. Let that not be your
You want me to
epitaph.
use the cell
When
phone?
America was being torn apart by the dividers and the dismantlers, the silent majority stood by and did nothing. Join the Second American Revolution and fight
what?
for the common
have
bond.
another phone
It's
number?
your first and last
347
best hope
324
to
3704.
preserve the life of America. My
My
name is Thomas Paine, yes.
Okay.
These are the times
cool,
that try
thanks.
men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. May you never be numbered among those cowards. Take back America now.
Okay, Freedomizers. Nickie Nix here. Hope you're having a beautiful, what is today? Today's Saturday, a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It is actually January 8th, 2011, and this is the Pedal Hour, which Pedal is a nonprofit organization that Proof Negative started quite some time ago, and it means, of course, people ending discrimination on books. We have a great guest joining us today, of course. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in real quick. I don't know what exactly I should call you. Should I call you doctor or professor?
Professor Howell, usually.
I didn't understand you at all. Say that one more time.
Professor.
Perfect. Okay. This is what I'm going to have to do because I actually figured out this issue before. I'm going to log off real quick, and I'm going to log right back in, and it should work for my sound because I'm having the same issue we did the first time, but I think I figured this one out. So if you want to, just go ahead and take some time and describe yourself and what you do, and then I'll be right back before you're done.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, I'm Professor Howell. My students have called me the Barefoot Professor for some time because I'm an advocate of living barefoot. I wrote a book called the Barefoot Book, which came out in July by Hunter House Publishers and is available everywhere. It's basically a book that describes how shoes are bad for your feet and bad for your bodies. Barefoot running has really become popular in the last year or so, and a lot of this actually became popular from another book called Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. But my book has come out and basically just follows up on that and explains that shoes are not just bad for us when we run. Shoes are bad for us when we walk. Shoes are bad for us when we stand. Shoes are really just bad just anytime you wear them. They're unhealthy. So I've been an advocate of getting rid of shoes and living without them for as much as possible for a few years now, and that's what I do.
I think that is absolutely awesome. I know when I had a broken toe, shoes absolutely kept that healing process down, and it wasn't by choice. It was due to my vocation at that moment in time. But and climbing trees are much easier if you're barefoot, by the way.
Oh, yeah. And climbing trees is a lot of good exercise, too, and it is better barefoot.
Okay, I am so sorry. My Skype actually crashed on me. I'm back. I do apologize. Temporary malfunction with technology.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yes, it is. And speaking of technology, what about the human body?
Nothing quite like it. You can abuse it, and it repairs itself, and the less you abuse it, the better. But, yeah, I have worn out a number of, back years ago when I used to run with shoes on, let me tell you, I'd wear through them and I'd have to replace them, but my feet still going strong.
Yeah, I don't I don't like shoes at all. I'm in total support of it. I don't wear them whenever possible. And one thing I did learn like last time that I did not know when I first started talking to Proof about this was the simple fact that it is not true when they say that you have to wear shoes to drive a car. It is not against the law.
It is legal to drive barefoot in all 50 states in the United States of America, and in fact, I think it's much safer to drive barefoot. Now, you have to get used to it. If you're not used to driving barefoot and you're used to wearing shoes, then the first time you do it, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel a little bit strange, and if you're uncomfortable with it, then you should, go slow and ease into it. But in the long run, I think if you get used to it, it's much safer to drive barefoot. It's like driving with bare hands as opposed to driving with thick, stiff gloves on your hands. It just is much, you can feel the vehicle and respond better when you're barefoot.
Yeah, the time difference that it takes for your foot to feel it, to go through another object. Exactly. I mean, we're talking simple math.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you actually feel it. You're actually a part of the vehicle or the ground. You actually become a part of the world around you if you go barefoot more often. And people might be surprised what they feel because there's so much energy. Go ahead.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful aspects of living barefoot. We have so many nerve endings in the bottom of our feet. We have somewhere between 100,000 to 200,000 nerve endings in the bottom of our feet. That's one of the most nerve-dense parts of our bodies. And when you stuff your foot into a sock and a shoe, you completely make it blind and deaf, and you can't feel with all of those nerve endings. And so I think one of the most wonderful things about going barefoot is to be able to feel the environment. That's the one place in your body, really, where you are in contact with the environment the most, is with your feet.
Yeah, there's just a comment in the chat room, and I know this you've heard many, many times. No shirt, no shoes, no service.
That is, other than the alliteration, I cannot figure out what shirts and shoes have in common, other than the fact that they both begin with SH. We can trace those signs back to the 1960s, 1970s, actually, the 1970s, when probably there was a lot of discrimination against hippies and the hippie movement, and that's when a lot of those signs appeared. So probably they appeared to keep those kind of people out of businesses.
Do you think it was more for the women when it came with the shirts? I mean, they saw too many women walking around with no tops and no bras, and they said, okay, can't do it no more.
I don't know, but it's I don't know, but I tell you, it's annoying to me that those two things are thrown together because you can argue in terms of the freedom aspects whether people should be walking around shirtless, male or female, in public, but shoeless is a totally different thing. Shoes have not, being barefoot is not considered immoral by anyone in Western society. Being barefoot is not illegal, as being shirtless is illegal for half the population in most United States. So, so there really has shirts and don't cause athletes. Well, what would you call it? Athlete shoulder, or some other kinds of things like that. So fungal and bacterial infections and things like that. So shoes and shirts really have nothing in common other than the SH.
Yeah, and the fact that they can keep things harmful close to your body. But, and I know another misconception that most people have is if you walk barefoot so often, and I guess for such a continual period of time, that your feet become rough and you don't feel anything anymore.
Yeah, well, that is another one of those misconceptions. It's not true. Your feet do get tough, but to me, one of the most beautiful aspects is that you can feel the environment, and that doesn't go away. The ability to feel the ground doesn't go away, and in fact, things that used to be painful become pleasure, a source of pleasure. So people that are very tender-footed and used to wearing shoes, they step out on gravel, and it's ouch, 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 it's hurt. But once your feet get toughened up, I can run on gravel, and I enjoy running on gravel. It feels good. So I enjoy sticks and roots and gravel and dirt and pavement and all kinds of different
anything but glass, because it always tends to turn up at the worst spots.
Glass?
Glass, Well, here in Texas, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I'm in an apartment and nobody seems to care because it has nothing to do with them, you know, and that's what's so sad. People are so disconnected, and this is part of it. It's just...
Yes, I think going barefoot makes you a little bit more of an environmentalist. You certainly are more aware of the ground and tend to take more of an interest in keeping the ground safe and clean and healthy. But glass is not all that. Where I live, it's not a whole lot of glass around, and I've even been running, and I've run through glass and walked through glass, and it's usually not even that dangerous, believe it or not. The only time I've ever cut my foot on glass was in my own kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a small cut, It was one of those things where I just had to brag about it on Facebook after it happened because I actually finally cut my foot with glass, but it was such a small cut, I had to squeeze it to make it bleed.
That's great. I don't know. Okay, let's see. Sorry. You actually got your PhD in biochemistry, right?
That is correct. Yeah, I got my PhD from Virginia Tech in biochemistry, and I began my studies actually after graduate school in cystic fibrosis, actually, and studying the respiratory system and the digestive system and how that's affected by the disease cystic fibrosis. And that's but after I came to Liberty University, I got out of that because Liberty University is not a research institution; it's a teaching institution, and they don't have the infrastructure for that kind of research. So I basically moved out of those areas that require millions of dollars of equipment and grants and all that kind of stuff. And and I began teaching anatomy, and that's what I've been teaching for the last almost 9 years.
Okay.
Anatomy and physiology.
That is awesome. On a chemical level, seriously, the body responds different when it would, I guess, I don't want to say just soft and chewed because it sounds so, I guess, monosyllabic, I don't know, as opposed to actually being barefoot or without wearing gloves, actually letting your skin adapt to the world around you, as opposed to staying indoors and being trapped and then you go outside and you get sick automatically. It's like just the chemical responses of the body alone. I mean, that should be reason enough.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting link. I think there might be an interesting link between the immune system, immunity, and going barefoot more often. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence when we talk to barefooters and people who have adopted barefooting in the last few years, because again, this is exploding as a phenomenon. People are really beginning to rethink their need for shoes, and a lot of people are throwing them off and beginning to go barefoot in numbers like I've never seen before. But when you talk to a number of these people, they'll say, I used to have asthma worse than I have it now. I used to get colds. I used to get the flu. I used to get things a lot worse when I was wearing shoes than when I started going barefoot. And there are no good studies. There's not a lot of science. There's no controlled studies that I know of that have looked into this yet. But you hear this so repeatedly that you have to wonder if there's something to it. And I do believe going barefoot exposes us to the environment more. We get exposed to germs, good germs and bad ones. Not in the sense that you get infections, but in the sense that it can boost your immunity. There are there are bacteria that live in soil, for instance, that we do know from a number of scientific studies enhance your immune system and enhance your mood, actually, and elevate serotonin levels in your brain. So I think there's more to going barefoot than it just feels good and it's good for your feet. I think it's good for your body in many different ways.
Very much so. I've got this clip here that's actually I guess it's the trailer for your book that you currently have. And anyone who's in the chat room, if you look above, there should be a link up there that'll send you directly to his book on Amazon.com. There, and it is called the Barefoot Book, correct?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. Well, if you want to hang in there real quick, we're going to go ahead and play this quick trailer. I thought it was great. So just so people can at least get a little bit of understanding. Hang in.
Sure.
Every morning, we all get up and do a host of things without giving it much thought. And there is good reason behind most. We brush our teeth, take a shower, eat breakfast, get dressed, and put on some shoes. Shoes. We have a pair of shoes for just about everything. Walking, running, hiking, shoes for the beach, shoes for the mall, shoes to make you taller. Sometimes for fashion, other times for function, but always inside the box. After all, we need shoes, right? I'm Dr. Daniel Howell, a professor of anatomy and physiology, and I've got a new question. Could the shoes we wear to protect our feet actually be negatively affecting our health? Everyone knows a pair of ill-fitting shoes can be a pain, but in the Barefoot Book, I'll explain how even well-fitting shoes can cause many foot issues like fungus or bacteria, bunions, and ingrown toenails, and how some shoes can cause even bigger problems, damaging your back and your knees. You can start slowly at first, go shoeless while sitting at your work desk, take the dog on a barefoot walk. Declare the house a barefoot-only zone. Simply set your feet free. So, if you are willing to think outside the box and challenge the cultural norm, get a copy of the Barefoot Book or check out our website. I think if you try it, you will love it, and you might even gain a little extra closet space.
That's great. And you actually did it all yourself, huh?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And like I said, anybody can go check out the book. And if you do go to Amazon, they always have that. You can try a sample chapter through Kindle, at least to get an idea, and then you can buy it from there. It looks like we have a caller real quick. I believe this is Proof. So, hi, Proof.
Okay. Hey, yeah, you don't even have to say I'm a caller. Just put me on. It's fine.
Yeah, well,
I just felt like I should join in at some point here. And Daniel, I want to just allude to here that you've done many interviews over the last few years. And what are some of the better ones that you've done as far as TV goes?
TV? Well, I guess the Today Show with Kathy Lee Gifford and Sheryl Crow sitting in for Hoda. That was rather interesting. But I think actually MSNBC, I did the Dylan Ratigan show on MSNBC, and one of the neatest things about that was that he himself was barefoot. So he was very much a barefooter himself, and was excited that the book came out, and I thought it was so cool that he did that barefoot himself.
you see, that's not fair because I actually had those clips coming out. You jumped the gun there.
It just means I've done better homework.
Yeah, okay.
No, that's all right. Yeah, basically, any comments that Kathy Lee and or Sheryl said off air that way to go or anything negative?
No, but they did insist. Sheryl Crow did insist off the air that she could not, perform with her shoes. I know I've seen her perform with shoes off before. I think I've seen her perform with barefoot. I don't know, but she insisted that she had to wear those heels to be a singer and a performer. So I think she's wrong. There's a list of performers that don't wear shoes. Josh Stone is one of my favorites, who's quite famous for going around barefoot and performing barefoot. So certainly that can be done. In fact, I think it's crazy. I think entertainment, music, and singers, that lends itself nicely to barefoot. So I don't know what she was saying about that.
Yeah, I was just curious on that myself, and I don't know about Kathy Lee one way or the other.
No, she just, I don't know. I had some people, I think I lost a little bit of money because people were betting me that I could get her shoes off, but couldn't do it. Although she does, like as she said, I don't know if she said it on the air or off the air, but she's had a couple of surgeries already on her feet from the shoes that she wears, bunions and things like that. But I don't think those ladies are ready to give them up.
Especially the high heels, the stilettos, right?
Yeah, they were wearing 3-inch heels at least.
Crazy. I don't think I've ever owned a pair. I have a pair of tennis shoes, and I finally bought some flip-flops, but they really hurt my toes, so I never actually got around to it. I made the mistake of, because the concrete around here, it actually got to freezing and below. I went outside not thinking, just because I always do, and I ran over to the laundry area, and by the time I got there, stepped on the linoleum floor, my feet were so ice cold, though. So at what point do you stop?
Well, that's global warming, isn't it?
Oh, that's right.
That's right. It is global warming. At what point do you stop getting cold?
Well, or maybe put shoes on. I mean, is there a danger beyond below freezing, of course, when you risk frostbite and such? But I'm just curious, is there like...
You do adapt to it. That is what's taken me probably the longest to adapt to is temperatures, and in fact, hot more than cold. You know, your feet adapt to terrain pretty quickly. It only takes a few weeks of walking around barefoot, and you can get, you can start walking on gravel pretty easily. Temperature is a little bit a different thing. It took me several years, especially in going through a few hot summers, where I could really conquer the parking lot. I have now. I can walk across just about any parking lot in the middle of July or middle of August, and it doesn't really bother me so much anymore. In fact, something that I like to do is to park in the back of a lot and just walk all the way across it on a very hot summer day, just to watch people's mouths, their jaws drop as they see me go by. Cold, I'm getting a little bit better with that. Again, I don't like cold wet. That just sucks the heat right out of my body. But if it's dry, then I can be comfortable down into the 20s or even maybe the teens as long as it's dry. But it's something that it's taken me several years of, each winter I can seem to go a little bit further. I go a few weeks longer, or maybe another month longer before I'm forced to throw on something. Actually, this year I have been barefoot the entire winter, and I'm hoping to make it all the way through the winter barefoot with the exception of one snowstorm that we had that lasted only maybe 2 days, and I had some snow boots for just a little bit, playing in the snow with my children.
The weather's been quite interesting, too. You don't know where the snow will be going next, right? It snowed in L.A. last week, in Southern California.
Yeah, it snowed here in Vegas. Some of it's still on the ground, believe it or not.
Wow, and we're expecting snow here tomorrow in Texas and Dallas. They said, and it's 60 degrees outside right now.
60 degrees, oh my goodness, I would just be enjoying it. I'd be loving that. I think it's in the 20s or 30s today for us.
Wow. Of course, you could
right
be
now,
on
can I take this show a different direction here slightly? I want to get into the law debunking and myth busting, if you will. How did this come up where people think that it's actually against the law to drive and even going into OSHA and other things like that?
I've thought about this, and I think it's just it was a slow brainwashing, to be honest with you, that just began in the 70s. When you look back, I stumbled across a Mountain Dew commercial from the 1970s, or the early 70s, I think. And the whole Mountain Dew commercial was talking about that barefoot feeling. And you can get, so they had different people in different situations, and they were all barefoot, and they were saying drinking Mountain Dew gives you that barefoot feeling. And you got the sense that at that point when that commercial was made, that going barefoot was still pretty common, and everyone could relate to it. So, but as you move through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, those 3 decades, there's this increasing intolerance towards going barefoot, and we've been teaching this to our children. So ever since these signs came up, no shoes, no shirt, no service, we have been indoctrinating our children at school. They are not allowed to be barefoot at school. They're not allowed to play barefoot on the playgrounds. Their coaches tell them to put on their shoes. Their camp counselors tell them to put on their shoes. Their parents are constantly telling them to put on their shoes. Their doctors are telling them to put on their shoes. And when we raise children up, and they become teenagers and they become adults, and what they have been ingrained in their head is that going barefoot is unsafe, it's unnatural, it's illegal, it's unhealthy, it's all of these bad things. And I think just somewhere in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we just did a good job of indoctrinating our children and ourselves to believe these things.
Right, and over the last 10 years, it seems like there's just a going backwards on that now.
The pendulum is definitely swinging the other way. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And barefoot running, the way that has exploded as a phenomenon last year, and I think this year we're going to see even more people kicking off their shoes to go barefoot running, and people are beginning to realize, we've been sold a bill of goods. We've been told that we have to have shoes for our protection, for our safety, for our health. We've been told that it's illegal to drive barefoot. I cannot believe the number of restaurant workers, managers, and owners who honestly believe there's a health code that prohibits bare feet in a restaurant. These are people who are in the business. This is not just, Joe Public. These are people who are in the business And they believe and for me, my experience is 100%. 100% of restaurant owners and managers I talk to believe this.
Go ahead, Nickie. It's your show. I was trying not to overload you.
No problem. I was actually going to bring up the simple fact about kids because, okay, they have all these designer shoes that don't move and they put on infants before they leave the hospital most times. Even for pictures, I've seen them with high tops that go over the ankles, you know? And the kids, the poor baby girls, I feel so sorry for them. I seriously do. And the dresses, too, just so much fake synthetic material that goes into it, and then the shoes that totally bind the foot. And how does the child learn to walk in shoes?
Well, it is, that's actually a testimony to how adaptable the human body is. The fact that we all walk around, not me anymore, but that we walk around in shoes and do it so well. Because shoes do change the way we walk and the way we run so much. It's actually surprising that we actually can tolerate it. I think it's a testament to how adaptable our bodies are. But it's an unnatural thing, and it's a bad thing. It does have a negative impact on our body, especially this impact that accumulates over the years. So as you spend 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life in shoes, you're going to see the effects. Most people are going to see the effects, whether it's bunions, hallux valgus, athlete's foot, all these different kinds of things. We have 70% of Americans will visit a podiatrist for, at least once in their lifetimes for a shoe-induced problem. But I am so glad that the pendulum is swinging the other way. People are beginning to realize that shoes are unhealthy and that it's okay to go barefoot. It's so frustrating that there even has to be a book called the Barefoot Book, since it is legal to go barefoot, since it is healthy.
Well, here's my theory on that, is that the Old Navy 2 pairs of flip-flops for $5 became so popular, and so everybody's buying them, and then when they either break or they're uncomfortable when they're walking, they eventually take them off, and then they realize that it's not that much different, except there's nothing between their toes.
Well, you know what? There's a particular shoe company out there that encourages everyone to go barefoot for a day, and I love the fact that they do that because it communicates a number of things. Number one, it communicates that it's actually safe to go barefoot. No one would tell you to go barefoot if it was, well, let me put it this way. Let's think if it was the government. Now, the reason why, of course I'm speaking of Tom shoes, and the reason why, they want you to take off your shoes and go barefoot to experience how bad it is and how you need them. But can you imagine the government saying, you know what, seatbelts are really good for you. And to demonstrate how good they are, let's all spend a day driving without seatbelts on. That would be ludicrous. It would be ludicrous because you're literally putting people's lives at risk doing that. Tom Shoes knows it's safe and it's healthy to go barefoot, or they'd be getting sued telling people not to. It is safe, it is healthy, and what excites me is that people take off their shoes for that event and don't put them on. There's at least one person I know. There's an article of a girl who took up the challenge, took off her shoes for a day, and 4 months later was still barefoot. So people are, there's a little bit of backfiring that may go on, and I think it's a good thing. But people are definitely saying, you know what, it is legal, it is safe, it is healthy, and daggone it, I'm going to take my shoes off, and we're going to take our feet back. And I'm very excited about that.
Well, I was going to also mention the fact that apparently TSA had an issue with the fact that you had no shoes, right? Trying to get into the airport?
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't TSA. It was just the U.S. Airways. Oh. TSA doesn't actually have any regulations. They don't require shoes.
They actually make you take them off.
They actually make you take, that's right, they make you take off your shoes to go through the screening, but they don't have any regulations as far as you're requiring footwear. In fact, they don't have any.
So you were in danger
like the health department.
On the airplane because you don't have shoes. What are you going to do?
It was U.S. Airways. It's their policy. It wasn't TSA. It's kind of interesting, because the TSA that doesn't have a policy, and health codes don't have a policy about customers and about passengers. They don't care if you ride naked. Literally, a health department doesn't care if a customer goes into a restaurant naked.
So
they
what
don't care
was
if
the airline's reasoning?
Oh, I don't know. They just said it was, I guess when I was getting booted off the airplane, she grumbled something about hygiene but I don't understand how, so that $2 pair of flip-flops I got from Old Navy let me on the next flight. So somehow that makes me more hygienic. So I don't understand.
Yeah, and then you just kick them off the second you get in your seat anyway.
Well, yeah, and it's a centimeter of plastic. I mean, it's not going to suddenly keep,
Yeah, all the bugs are going to sit there and say, oh, well, we tried. I guess we'll just have to find someone else.
Yeah, yeah. And the passengers on that plane, I'm just reminded, too, they were a little irritated at U.S. Airways. They were pretty much on my side. There was another passenger, in fact, who offered me a pair of flip-flops to wear. She had an extra pair in her luggage and said, here, you can wear them. And they wouldn't even allow that. They just wanted me off the plane.
Wow. Wow. That's insane. That is the true definition of insanity. Well, hang in there.
So what happened? Did you have to find a different airline to go on?
I had to take I went to Old Navy and bought the flip-flops, and I had to find a different flight, yeah. It was the same airline, but a different flight.
Okay.
But there is no logic to this. There is a certain amount of insanity to this. It just, the more, I keep scratching my head, and I can't imagine why a manager of a restaurant would think that flip-flops make me healthy and going barefoot is unhealthy, or that...
And the thing is, I can understand if it's like an expensive five-star restaurant, the top of the Seattle Space Needle, or, something that's like $300 a plate or something, but an average restaurant, it shouldn't be a factor, especially ones... I used to live in Jacksonville for a while, and a couple of the restaurants have signs that specify that, and it's like you're on the beach.
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense at all. In fact, I almost got kicked out of Jimmy Buffett's restaurant up in near Chicago, and I was there with a few other barefooter friends of mine, and it took a good 15-minute conversation with the manager before he finally let us stay, and I think the only reason was because it was about 5 or 6 of us, and it was getting to be too much of a hassle for him. But Jimmy Buffett? I mean, I was going to call Jimmy Buffett and say, look, we're getting kicked out of your restaurant because we're barefoot. It's crazy.
Well, if you just want to talk about simple hygienics, usually an environment that is dark and moist and keeps the moisture there is usually where things grow, right?
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Nickie, I got to jump in here. We haven't grabbed a break yet, and
that's what I was trying to do.
I'm the boss. I kind of have to remind you.
Yeah, no, actually, that's what I was trying to do a few minutes ago, but that's...
Hey, go ahead and, I know I put a note that said don't play the Freedom Calendar, but go ahead and play them. It's fine. I just have to change that. But Freedom Calendar's cleared, and whatever else you feel like playing.
Cool. Well, I haven't done the Harvest one yet, so I figured I'd do that.
Yes, please.
Hang in there, Freedomizers. We'll be right back with the Barefoot Professor and Proof Negative.
Hi folks, CT here. I want to talk to you about a great preparedness resource, tomorrowsharvest.com. Whether it's an economic collapse or nature's fury, there's no feeling more secure than knowing that your loved ones will be well fed. If it's time to bug out or just camping with the family, Tomorrow's Harvest offers high quality, cost-effective, and long-term smart food storage. Get your free sample. The choices are great. From blueberry pancakes to cowboy chili, no one else has the meal variety of Tomorrow's Harvest. They also provide other survival necessities. Check out the various packages and customize your meal supply. Remember, there's no reason for fear today when you prepared with Tomorrow's Harvest. Go to www.tomorrowsharvest.com and tell them you're a Freedomizer.
This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. Warriors, you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Read about it in The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available now at newsstands everywhere. The Sovereign is a monthly 24-page tabloid newspaper featuring incendiary content about life during wartime in the age of Obama. Warriors.
Check it out, Freedomizers. Late Night Midlands is moved to W-O-I-C. Be there. W-O-I-C. Don't miss the
show, check WOIC.com for broadcast dates. On your computer and on the AM airwaves too. Late night in the Midlands. WOIC. Exclusively on WOIC. Come join us.
Radio listeners, you all know that the reason for global cooling is global warming. Well, we here at Lake Havasu Snow Removal want to remind everyone that we can plow your driveway or street 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are available in the Lake Havasu, Phoenix, and soon-to-be Tucson areas in the cold Arizona desert. So, if your driveway is backed up in the middle of April or in the frozen tundra season of August, please call 855-NO-AZ-SNOW today. Time of day, any time of night, Lake Havasu Snow Removal will clear your driveway in freezing cold tundra of Arizona. Thank you.
Okay, Freedomizers, we're back here. Of course, Proof Negative's here with us, hanging out as we talk to the Barefoot Professor, Professor Daniel Howell. And of course, if you check the link on the top, you can at least go see his book on Amazon.com. It is the Barefoot Book, and he gives many, many reasons. And he's got a PhD. No reason not to listen to him, right? You got to trust the doctor. All right. You want to go ahead and play one of these clips from your interviews that you had real fast?
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and play the one with Kathy Lee and that we were talking about earlier, and maybe give people a better understanding of what happened to you there. So this is on the Today Show, right?
Correct. Yes, the Today Show with Kathy Lee.
All right. Hang in there, guys.
You know what they say? If the shoe fits, wear it. Well, there's a guy, at least one guy, who believes boots weren't made for dancing and shoes weren't made for walking. Your bare feet were, and that's it.
Daniel Howell is an associate professor of biology at Liberty University and the author of the Barefoot Book, 50 Great Reasons to Kick Off Your Shoes.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
And I hear you had trouble getting on the plane or something, actually from here from Virginia.
That's true, yeah.
You were barefoot.
Yeah, I was getting on the plane in Roanoke, Virginia. Actually, I was on the plane. I was on the plane, in my seat, buckled up, and the flight attendant asked me if I had shoes, and I said, no, I don't have any shoes. And she asked me 2 or 3 times. I think she could not believe I didn't have shoes.
Yeah.
And walked away for a few minutes, came back, and said, you have to leave the plane.
Why would that be? But you're also on your way here, and it's freezing here. What do you do about this being in the cold once you get here?
Oh, well, you know, the cold is not that. Your feet adapt. Your feet adapt to terrain, and it adapts to weather. I can handle 30s, 20s even if it's dry. I don't like cold wet. If it's dry wet, I can handle. Dry cold, I can handle.
Where did all this come from?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I started running barefoot, and, you know, barefoot running is just taking off these days as a craze. In the last year, it's taken off, and I started barefoot running. I've been transformed by it. I love it.
2,000 miles.
2,000 miles of barefoot running, injury-free.
And you believe that it's just better for your feet, stronger arches?
90% of our problems in this country, 90% of our foot problems in this country can be traced back to the shoe. They're ruining our arches, flat foot, fallen arches, bunions, Taylor sagus, Morton's neuroma, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, even arthritis in the knee can be traced back to shoes.
You're a rock star, and I can't do what I do without these platforms, right? And we are vertically challenged women to begin with, right? I mean, we're not the smallest things in the world.
I'm vertically challenged too, but you know what? It's just in comparison to everybody else wearing 3 inches.
What's the craziest thing somebody has said to you? By the way, how did you go on the plane? Did you go buy, they made you go buy flip-flops, right?
I did. I had to get off the plane. I went to Old Navy. Old Navy has never discriminated against me. I'm barefoot. I love them, but...
And then you had to take yourself off and put them in security.
Yeah. You know, you would think in this day and age with shoe bombers that barefoot passengers would be welcome, but no, not at U.S. Airways.
Now, do you wear socks when you ever?
I don't know socks. I don't like them.
When do you ever wear shoes? You must wear shoes.
I do. At Liberty University, they have a shoe rule that requires me to wear shoes.
And what about restaurants? No shoes, no shirt, no service?
If they won't serve me, I'll go somewhere else. There are lots of places that will take me with my feet. And, you know, if the places that won't, I'll just take myself and my money somewhere else.
But you go into public restrooms with bare feet.
I don't like public restrooms, and I do avoid them.
But you're not peeping outside.
Yeah, but, no, I do try to avoid restaurants. But, other than the yuckiness of them, they're not very dangerous places. It's kind of yucky. You're a very unusual man. I am. But I like that about that. It's nice to see you. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah. But you're so guilty about these shoes, I mean, I had 2 operations on my feet. I have to wear shoes.
Hi, everybody. So, Daniel, I think she was hitting on you.
Excuse me?
I think she was hitting on you.
So I think I'm struggling to hear your question.
Sorry, I said I think she was hitting on you.
Oh, Kathy Lee may have been. That's what my wife said, too, so I'm not sure. But, yeah, but that comment, I have to wear shoes. It's kind of interesting. Shoes do create a dependency for shoes. People do feel like they have to wear them, not just for social reasons, but sometimes even for physical reasons. And shoes do create a dependency for shoes. But the good news is that the more time you spend out of them, you can wean yourself off of them and not be dependent on them. You can toughen your feet up so you can walk out on different environments and not be, ooch, ooch, ow, 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 that hurts. You can, and in fact, you get so used to going barefoot. People that do go barefoot a lot, I have to caution people. Anybody who's interested in perhaps going barefoot more often, I have to warn you, it is addictive. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And the more you do it, the less dependent you get on shoes. In fact, the more you realize just how unnatural and uncomfortable they are, and the less you want to be in them. And the more time you spend barefoot, the more time you want to spend barefoot, the more things you want to do barefoot. And you just get to a place where, watch out, you might be 100 times, you might be a full-time barefooter if you're not careful, which is a wonderful thing.
Hey, I support it. I every day of my life I support it. Honestly, I don't wear shoes either. So, hey, we got a caller coming in. PJ Creamer, you're talking to the Professor Barefoot.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm just calling in for the aspect of the barefoot idea. Something that I haven't been introduced to, and I find it fascinating because it's what I'm drawing in my mind as I'm listening to you guys talk on is an overall analogy for kind of America. And, the fact that we need some sort of a rehab based on the goods, the situation, such as an article I read, America's 40% overpriced. I was just wondering, not only with the health benefits and the addictivity, the naturalness, our roots, but aside of that, I was wondering if, that had ever crossed your mind as far as, where did Nike shoes come from? You're looking at sweatshops in China. As far as I'm concerned, all of the peril that we're concerned about today all stems back from this outsourcing, loss of jobs, economic depression, not just outsourcing, but this global web of things and bringing in and the influx of goods, the over-consumerism. I see the going barefoot thing as an overall analogy of, hey, you found something smarter. It's a little tougher to do. It's kind of like rehab. It's tougher to do rehab than to keep doing drugs. But, that rehab's going to keep you from dying, maybe even better your life or what have you. That was the analogy I was drawing when I was listening to you guys.
Yeah, and, I think of a couple of things as you're talking. Number one, with the rehab thing, when shoes debilitate our feet, and we have to rehabilitate them and strengthen them to go barefoot. But just as getting, rehab off of alcohol or other drugs or whatever, in the end, after you go through that, aren't you a better, healthier person in the end? And the same thing with footwear. Once you wean yourself off of shoes, once you rehabilitate your feet and strengthen them up, you will have stronger feet, you'll have a healthier body. And you mentioned also the outsourcing, and absolutely, most of our shoes are being made in places like China. And, a lot of people, especially in California, I've noticed, as I talk to people in California now, I live in Virginia, but as I've talked to a number of people who live in California, and I've been there a couple of times, and I've just had the opportunity to talk to a lot of barefooters out there, they're not doing it just for the health of it. They're doing it because it's greener. You are, saving someone a sweatshop job. You are reducing your carbon footprint. I read somewhere that just for running shoes, to use running shoes consumes about 520 pounds of carbon dioxide a year or something like that. So just by running barefoot, you can reduce your carbon footprint like that, and by living barefoot, you can reduce it even more. So definitely there's the the environmental aspect. Look, when you hike, if you hike you can have 20 people, and I've done this. You can have 20 people hiking barefoot on a trail, and they will do less damage to that trail than one person plodding through there with hiking boots on. The hiking boots dig into the dirt. They leave these big prints. You can see them. You can have 20 people go through barefoot, and you walk right behind them. You didn't know they were there. They have left no imprint on their environment. So there's so many good reasons. It's not just about your health. It's about the environment. And another thing that I thought of as you were talking was just the whole freedom aspect. We have too many laws in this country. We all know that. But on top of the laws that we have, we put further restrictions on ourselves. We've already, discussed that it's not legal to be barefoot, and yet we put this social constraint on us so that it's so difficult just to go barefoot, even though it's legal to do so. So as if we don't have enough laws telling us what we can and can't do, we put our own social restrictions on it. And this, we need to lighten up a little bit just for our own personal freedom.
Yay. Sorry.
I agree. I have to agree, and I think that's kind of the overall analogy that I was drawing was because I'm kind of a big picture guy, and I want to look at the world and I want to say we've got these problems. I'm one of the few that actually want to go back and examine, well, where did the problem come from? And not only where did the problem come from, but how can we help to solve that? Well, when doing that, you come up with options such as going barefoot. Not only is going barefoot, good for the environment, but it's also good for yourself. I was reading, actually, before I even came across this show. I didn't know you were coming on today, and this is an interesting topic. But beforehand, I read an article, not to prepare, but that was talking about people running a marathon barefoot is more efficient or something like that. They talk about the effects, how good it is for the spine and things like that. How, so it's almost, you got to condition yourself into it, though. You got to get used to, again, being on your own 2 feet. That's a little harder, and that's where I was relating it to the rehab. It's kind of like getting off China products. Think about it, all the plastic that's in your Happy Meals and things like that, your toys for your kids. You go to Toys R Us, I go to buy a tool. I'm a construction man, I go to buy a tool for my general contracting. Guarantee you that's not made in America. So we've got a situation where, we're American. We hold this freedom and these values very close to our heart, our Constitution. It seems that the overall general consensus of this poll is that we like freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we base it on our Constitution, which allows that to continue to happen. Well, why in the world would I buy Nikes from somebody who's doing something like the Nike Corporation was, doing something so horrible and un-American, such as child labor? That's absolutely a reality in China and other third world countries. Bangladesh is where my hat came from that I'm wearing. Child labor makes up an actual substantial percentage of their markets, yet we as Americans are so willing to fund that because it's so easy. And, they've made it to where subsidizing everything and making it so easy for me to come across it. I can't build a pair of shoes buy my materials, sew it up, put the time into it. By the time I calculate what that actually costed me, time involved, of course, as well, labor, I'm looking at doubling the price as if I were to go to Walmart and pick up one of these pairs, or even New Balance or what have you, even though they're the higher end, more expensive running shoe or what have you. I'm paying double, and I think that's that's an issue. We need made in America. We need to support our neighbors. I need to be able to go out on my construction job every day and feel like when I go to buy my meal, when I go to buy my tools, when I go to buy my construction material, granted, some of it does come from America. Wood industry is big here and what have you, but the majority of it is not, and that's my problem. Less than 50%, less than 40%, maybe even less than 20%, I feel goes to my neighbors and to my country. And, that's kind of hard. That's like trying to transition into bare feet. That's harder way to go about it. But yet I've got you telling me about how great it is for my back, how great it is, for the economy to shut that. That's, in my opinion, walling up, starving the beast, if you will, kind of thing that I thought of people as far as helping us. I guess it's a kind of a protectionist angle. Anyways, I'll stop talking. That's my thought.
I agree with you. I agree with you that we do need more made in America, and going barefoot is an easy way to get started. You know, you can save yourself hundreds of dollars, as you said, hundreds of dollars by just not wearing as many shoes and going barefoot. And it's better for your back. It's better for your knees. It's better for your hips. It's better for your feet. I think it's good for us in terms of freedoms, just experiencing some personal freedom. It's good for the environment. You know, we can be a little bit more environmentally friendly. We not only are we being more friendly to the environment, but we're being more aware of our environment. One of the things I like, and it's not entirely true, it's a little bit of a slur, but, you know, shotties throw things down and barefooters pick it up. Because, you know, people wearing shoes, you just become careless as to where you're walking, how you're walking. You don't care so much what's on the sidewalk. When you're walking barefoot, you do care a little bit more. So it makes you a little bit more sensitive to your environment.
And it doesn't totally take away from your freedoms or your right to be able to fight that, because I'm here and I go barefoot every day. I have turquoise hair, covered in got piercings, got tattoos, and I homeschool my son. And I'm here doing this, and I don't wear shoes.
But have you never experienced discrimination for being barefoot?
Besides work, I ignore it because there's some things I just, whatever, then I won't do it. Like you said, that's the joy and beauty of having a society to where if you don't...
Now, let me jump in here. And PJ, I'm proof. I was just on the line with Dr. Prepper, just getting ready for the next hour's show. Not this upcoming hour, but at 2 p.m. Pacific. Now, I used to do stand-up comedy for a living, and one of the things that happened to me, and I was able to use this on stage for a couple of years, is that I was at a Baskin-Robbins once, and they told me that I needed to wear shoes because there could be glass on the ground. So I asked them, "What glass products do you sell here in Baskin-Robbins?" And the lady couldn't answer, but she said, "Well, there could be a drive-by shooting, and then there might be glass on the ground then, and we don't want you to step on glass if this place gets shot up." And my point of view is that the last thing I'm worried about, if I'm in a gang area and this place is going to be shot up, I'm not worried about what I have on my feet at this time.
Well, but, you know, and it's the same kind of logic that was used in U.S. Airways. Look, how is having a shoe on my foot going to save me if that plane comes down out of the sky from 30,000 feet? It is absolutely ridiculous. There's no logic to this, and I can't figure out what's driving people to say these things. Because these are smart people. This is a smart person. This is a person who's normally reasonable. How could they possibly believe what they are saying? Or do they hear themselves?
But let me ask you this, though, Daniel, and I'm sure you've come up with this, where you're lifting a 50-pound bag of dog food, and nobody ever asks me, well, how are you doing that without a back brace?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny.
Or you're maneuvering items through the shelves at China Mart. Man, why aren't you wearing your football helmet? You might bang your head on the top shelf.
Well, look, if a bullet's going to come through the window and glass is going to be flying, then you should be wearing a helmet with a shield over your face.
And a bulletproof vest.
Right. A meteor might fall from the sky.
I can give an extreme example. I just watched a flick the other day. It's a few years maybe outdated. I don't even really know the date, but surrogates. And it's a matter of people jumping into a body, and they go out into the world every day, and it becomes so, you know, and there's little zones where real people exist, and they're fighting the surrogates and whatnot, but it's kind of like an avatar that they hop into and go out of their apartments every day and live in. Bruce Willis was in it. Kind of a cool flick if anybody wants to catch it. I'm not plugging it for the movie, but for the idea, we've been sold safety. We've been sold that somebody else is going to always take care of me. We've been sold that things melt down, somebody's going to be pointing the direction for patriots. Somebody's going to be pointing the direction for, if you want to go vote for them. It's not going to happen. What we need to realize in this country, it's a land of opportunity, and my grandfathers, both of them, got their hands dirty, went off to war to defend it, came back. You know, it's a matter of you have to make yourself in the land of opportunity, and you have to also take care of yourself and take responsibility.
That's the word. That's what I was going to say. What it is that we've given up personal responsibility. And when you don't take personal responsibility, you can't have any freedom. Freedom and personal responsibility go hand in hand.
nor can you affect the world around you or those around you. It comes into a lot of things. But hey, everyone, it's the top hour. This is like mainly what we get into in the second hour. My show's Rise Above Dehumanization, and that's kind of perfect topics for that kind of thing. But I'm going to play my opening so I can stretch a little bit, walk away, maybe give everybody else a chance to do that as well. If y'all want to hang in there, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Is that cool?
Thank you.
Perfect. So, Freedomizers, we'll be right back with you.
The whole system that we live in drills into us that we're powerless, that we're weak, that our society is evil, that it's private, et cetera, and so forth. It's all a big, fat lie. We are powerful, beautiful, extraordinary. There is no reason why we cannot understand who we truly are, where we are going. There is no reason why the average individual cannot be fully empowered. We are incredibly powerful beings.
You know, I think I spent 30 years of my life, the first 30, trying to become something. I wanted to become good at things. I wanted to become good at tennis. I wanted to become good at school and grades and everything I kind of viewed in that perspective. I'm not okay the way I am, but if I got good at things, I realized that I had the game wrong. The game was to find out what I already was. Find out what I already was.
Now, in our culture, we've been trained for individual differences to stand out. So you look at each person, the immediate hit is brighter, dumber, older, younger, richer, poorer, and we make all these dimensional distinctions, put them in categories and treat them that way. And we get so that we only see others as separate from ourselves in the ways in which they're separate. And one of the dramatic characteristics of experience is being with another person and suddenly seeing the ways in which they are like you, not different from you, and experiencing the fact that that which is essence in you and which is essence in me is indeed one. The understanding that there is no other. It is all one. And I wasn't born Richard Alpert. I was just born as a human being. And then I learned this whole business of who I am and whether I'm good or bad or achieving or not, all that's learned along the way.
The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism, to rabid nationalist fervor, are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the Earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed.
We're back here with you, and I've got everybody's mic open. So, if you want to continue on with the whole freedom issue, or seriously the connection that just being yourself gives you to let you know that we are all so much more alike than the powers that be want us to know. And if you actually connect with this world, and Barefoot helps with that, it really does. And if you connect with the people around you, imagine the effect we could have. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we were talking earlier about the connection to the world and the things you feel through the feet. The skin's a big deal with this because the skin is such a large organ and takes in so many impulses And the foot has such a culmination of nerve endings. So that in itself shows the connections and how much you can actually experience.
I agree.
You know, you know more about anatomy than I do.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think there's the whole thing with reflexology. You know, there's some people, you know, think it's quackery and don't buy into it at all, and other people believe in reflexology quite a bit. But there is definitely some science behind the fact that you have all of these nerve endings in the feet. They pass by nerves that come from other parts of the body, and so there's a reason why these things like reflexology exist. The foot is an amazing sense organ. It's one of the most important. Our feet, our hands, and our lips. Those are the three most sensitive parts of our body with the most concentrated amounts of nerve endings. And there's a reason for each one of those. Sweat glands, too. Most of the places on your body that have the most sweat glands are the palms of your hands, your scalp, and the soles of your feet. We keep our hands usually open. We keep, other than hair, we don't have much in our heads usually. But, we every day tend to wrap our feet up. And I think it affects thermoregulation of your body. It does for me. I know it does for me. And, creates all kinds of problems with sweaty feet and things like that in shoes.
Very much so. And just beyond the whole physical aspect of it, it has an emotional and a vibrational effect as well. And the simple fact is that we are energy, and our body, the earth breathes as we do. It comes in and out, and it responds to things as we do, just as life does. And when you become a part of it, it seriously changes your whole aspect of life. You actually can go outside and see the world and realize that, hey, things aren't as bad as what they want you to be, that we don't have to be in this fear and this need to have someone in control. Because that's all it is. It's like you're in danger. You've got homegrown terrorists coming. You have shoe bombers, underwear bombers. It's all just fear. And it's things like this that keep us disconnected, and that's why it's pushed. They don't want you to connect.
Right. That going barefoot definitely has an effect on your psychology. Putting you at ease, being less stressed out. So it's important for you psychologically even. I think it's good for you mentally and psychologically, and it elevates your mood and makes you feel better and reduces your stress if you can go barefoot more.
Now you think about it. You get home, you throw off those shoes, take off those socks, you sit down, and you go, ah.
Yeah.
For a reality aspect, if you will, could I ask? I'm in Columbus right now. Got near a foot on the ground. Actually, more like 6 inches. So it's not bad, but I put my hands in the snow, and my hands come out red, and it hurts a little bit. I'm just wondering. Maybe it's a good question for the folks in the crowd as well. How do you cope with winter, or do you as a barefooter? Do you suggest that barefooters generally live in warm climates?
Well, winter does present a problem for going barefoot. I say that the shoe is a tool. It's a tool. Use it when you need it. If it's really cold outside, you're going to wear gloves, you're going to wear hats, you're going to wear shoes. But when you get inside, take those things off.
Nice. And another related thought, we have a milling industry when it comes to how we get our food, our meat specifically. What if we took responsibility for ourselves and we're, raising cattle as a normality instead of buying cattle from, say, McDonald's, which is actually only about really 20% real beef. The rest is grain and crap. So, what if we were doing that? Then I'd wrap a little cattle skin maybe around my feet, right? That would still be much more comparable to being barefoot than it would be wearing shoes. That was just a thought for me when it came to the winter aspect.
Well, absolutely. Probably the best shoe that exists is the oldest shoe that exists, and that's the moccasin. When you take a real, honest-to-goodness moccasin, not some modern thing with a hard sole and an insole and cushion gels and all that, and call it a moccasin, but a real moccasin, which is basically just
hide
wrapped around your foot. Yeah, some hide wrapped around your foot. It doesn't have an elevated heel. It doesn't have toe spring. It doesn't have arch support. It doesn't have cushioning. And it's a very healthy shoe to wear.
I actually have it on my porch, which is when it's cold. We have a nice little, literally a cowhide outside. And you can go out totally barefoot and you don't feel the cold blow. It is so awesome. It doesn't matter how cold it is or what's been around. That's why it's out there. Because even in the summer, when it's hot and the concrete you don't want to touch, if you're on the cowhide, seriously, you don't feel it. It regulates the temperature. It doesn't, it's awesome. Seriously, I know. Without having to have it with shoes, just having the hide, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just need to be smarter with the things that we put on our feet. Go barefoot more as much as we can. When you have to wear something because of environmental conditions or a shoe is a tool, get a smart tool, a smart shoe, something that doesn't affect the way you walk, the way you run, and have such a negative impact on your joints.
Maybe to play a little bit of a devil's advocate, how about the idea that I'm not walking with arches? Now some shoes, say Converse, don't have arches. Other shoes such as I skateboard, skating shoes are flat, generally because it helps you connect with the board. But when you're generally wearing a walking shoe or an everyday shoe, a walk-around shoe, not just a stylish Converse that you're going to wear out for one night or a skate shoe that you're going to wear to the park for a session, typically I think of arches being on my foot. I think of a natural arch that my foot has. I'm just a little not concerned because naturally we were born to be barefoot. That's a fact. If we were cavemen, we're going to be barefoot. We're going to find ways to overcome that. Now, we made tires for our feet. That's pretty darn genius if you think about it. But at the same time, I understand where you make all these crutches and expect to run around on crutches all the time. Eventually, have you guys ever seen Wall-E, where the advanced human race is off the planet and they're all fat? It's a kid's cartoon. They're all fat and running around in their wheelchairs and whatnot. So there is absolutely a perversion aspect or point that we got to watch for. But I was just wondering, as far as the arches in the foot go, and would that cause me to then be flat-footed? I'm just wondering if there's an eventual uncomfortability there.
No, actually, it's pretty good evidence that it's the shoes that cause flat foot and fallen arches. It's shoes with arch support, elevated heels, and toe springs that cause flat feet and fallen arches. They put an undue stress on your arch throughout the day. Even when you're just sitting in a shoe, that it's an elevated heel and an arch support, it puts in a toe spring, which is the curving up of the toe. This puts pressure, a strain on your arch, and over years of the causes the arches to fall. And walking barefoot will strengthen your arches and probably will raise your arches for many people.
Wow.
The body has amazing healing abilities. Ask Mr. Anatomy there. I'm sure, and biochemist, yeah, I did biochemist, right? PhD in biochemistry. So yes, wow, I was right. But seriously, the body can heal. It only takes like 3 days of completely missing a certain item to go through the withdrawal period, and that includes TV, because the radio waves that come in affect you as well, and things like that. It's pretty simple. It's just a matter of having the knowledge to see what's all around you instead of just hearing the blue and red, as in from Wall-E, or the Republican Democrat, only A and B, only right or wrong. There is no gray. There is no letting man be man. No, we have restrictions instead of being curious and explorative. It's really ruined us.
Correct. And, as far as your feet go, your body does have the ability to heal itself quite a bit. There's some things that can be undone. There's some shoe damage that can be undone, but there's other shoe damage that may not be able to be undone by simply going barefoot. Flat foot and fallen arches, there's some evidence that, anecdotal evidence and in scientific literature that goes back to the 1980s, actually, that if you go barefoot more often, you can strengthen and raise your arches. On the other hand, something like bunions, once you have those, going barefoot is not going to reverse that. It can slow the progression of it, maybe keep it from getting worse. But the only way to get rid of a bunion after it has developed, basically, is surgery. So it's not going to undo itself.
How about
what is a bunion, please? I don't know.
A bunion is bunion and hallux valgus go together very often. So hallux valgus is when you have your big toe is curved inward or angled inward towards your other toes. And it's basically taking, if you look at a pointed toe shoe, your foot adopts that structure over time. And so that your big toe is pushed inward. Usually there's a big knot, a knobby area at the joint of your big toe, and that would be a bunion. So the bunion and the hallux valgus often go together, and they are definitely caused by footwear. And going barefoot, I don't know, it's not reversible. Once the damage happens, you can't reverse it by simply going barefoot. But again, going barefoot can stop the progression of it or slow the progression of it.
That's interesting. If you don't mind, what it is the pointed aspect and your foot taking the form of that. The reason why I say that's interesting for me personally is because my big toe is kind of pointed, and I've always worn shoes for my whole life, ever since I was an infant. My parents had them on me, and I've never taken them off. One of the reasons being in my, through adolescence, but getting even a little older before it really started to affect me or bother me, is the athletes. And just like with your response to my previous question, initially what you think of it and how going barefoot would affect it with the arches, what I found was that I thought it might flatten my arch to walk on a flat surface and never have an arch. But actually, you're saying that it would strengthen it, and that makes sense because as the host here said, and I'm sorry I haven't picked up your name just yet, but as the host said, what were you saying? Flat. Oh God, lost what I was saying. But anyways, flat feet, arches. I'm trying to bring it back here. What did she say about the arches? She said that the human body is resilient.
We can heal.
Yeah, the human body can heal. That's right. So, and it makes perfect sense that if you're stressing it, the human body, when you rest, is naturally going to correct it. And when it corrects it, it's like lifting weights, And it's starting to make sense in my mind. This is just my dialogue from what I'm building from the conversation.
After injury, if you just let it go and you don't do anything, what happens? You can't use it anymore. You're never going to be able to do something if you don't actually use it. You use it when it hurts just a little bit until you can't, and you try harder the next day, or you'll never be able to, or you'll just be a lame. That's human nature, but we live for instant gratification. So if it's work and it's something that we have to do, no, we'd rather take a pill that the prescription drug is forced.
Well, what you have to realize is that a shoe is a cast, and I don't say that as an analogy. I mean it literally. A shoe is a cast, and it immobilizes your foot. And after years and years and years of your foot being immobilized, now the foot normally, when you walk barefoot, there are a lot of motions that happen in your foot. There's flexing, extending of the toes, there's extension and flexion of supination, pronation going on with your ankle. There's all kinds of motions going on in your foot. When you stick it in a cast, you immobilize the foot and you begin to roll on the shoe, which has an elevated heel and an elevated toe, and you roll on it. It changes the way you walk, and your foot becomes so weak and so debilitated that your arches fall, your bones get weak, your ligaments get weak, your muscles get weak. And so going barefoot strengthens that up. The arches are actually crucial to proper foot function. And by putting an arch support under your arch, you completely obliterate its entire function. It's kind of like shock absorbers in a car. The shock absorbers in a car go up and down. This is the analogy that I make in my book, the Barefoot Book. I talk about how shock absorbers in a car are meant to compress and go up and down to dampen the shock when you drive along the road. But if you put a brace on the shock absorber, you can stop it from doing that, but it takes away its function, and the car and the passengers will suffer as a result. The arches are doing so many things, and when you put an arch support under it, you obliterate its function, and your foot, your knee, your ankle, your hips, your spine, they all suffer as a result.
It's like the immune system. You have to expose it in order to make it stronger, sort of situation. You can't just cradle it. You can't hold a baby in a baby position all the way until it's 4 years old and expect that when you put it down, it's going to take off running like the rest of the 4-year-olds. That's going to ultimately cripple your baby or at least set it behind.
Or if you keep them inside and you then take them out, expect them any other thing than allergies or asthma to occur. I mean, it's because you're not a part of things. And that's how our immune system grows. But then again, most babies aren't breastfed either. And we're scared to talk about that.
I agree. I mean, I'm a big breastfeeding advocate as well. I think it's I'm on the same page with you.
I have two and four, both. My wife stayed home, and that was absolutely something we made sure that happened, you know. It's a matter of exposing, and I think that helps.
There is this thing called the hygiene hypothesis, you know, which simply states that we have more asthma, more allergies, more sicknesses today because we're always using hand sanitizers. We're always, insulating ourselves from bacteria and germs in the environment, and so our immune systems are weaker as a result.
You know what I'm worried about with bare feet, though? I remembered what I was originally trying to get at. I love to do that. You got to watch me. I confuse the crap out of myself and then infectiously do it to others. But anyways, in my situation, it's something that I pick up very easily to the point where I go down and get some Ting from the grocery store or something and make sure that, I'm preventing it. Is that something that I could ultimately or would have to worry about? Say, I'm thinking about, I'm exposing my feet to water, I'm exposing my feet to dirt. Could that potentially be something that would further progress that, or is that something I'm thinking wrong about, just like I was with the arches?
Did you say athlete's foot?
Foot, that's right.
Athlete's foot. Yeah, no, the best thing you can do to get rid of athlete's foot is to go barefoot. And even the American Dermatology Association says this. What causes athlete's foot is the dark, wet, the dark, moist, warm environment of a closed-toe shoe and a sock. And that creates a breeding ground for these fungi, for bacteria, and this is what causes athlete's foot. The best way to get rid of athlete's foot is to go barefoot. Let your feet be exposed to the air. Let your feet be exposed to the sunshine. Your skin will change. Can you imagine what the skin of your hand would be like if you kept your hand in gloves for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week? Wow. I can tell you what they would be like is they'd be like the skin on your foot. And they'd be clammy and soft and pale and not able to withstand infections and things like not able to fight off infections. What we need, the skin on your feet will be exactly like the skin on your hands if you leave your feet open to the air, let them stay dry, let them stay exposed to sunlight. You'll have healthy skin on your feet. You won't have these infections. And the best way to get rid of them is to go barefoot.
That makes complete sense. It's just like the arch situation where, just common thinking would think, oh, that's going to flatten my arch. But then if you really dig into the issue and delve yourself into understanding the situation and how the body reacts to life, it's just like the glove analogy. I would have never thought about that. That's interesting. Freedomizer and host, I still didn't catch your name. I apologize.
It's Nickie.
I'm sorry?
Nickie.
Thank you, Nickie. I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on. My 2 breastfed babies are up now, so my time on the radio is up. I've got to go take care of that. But I really enjoyed the topic, and Barefoot, man, keep on keeping on. I love your message, and you took me, who had never been introduced to the concept. At this point, I called into the show because I was intrigued, and I might just take off my shoes a little more now.
Well, let me tell you, I think this is even more important. Let your children stay barefoot as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because the shoeing of children, I've got a chapter on this in the Barefoot book, but the shoeing of children is ruining our kids' feet for a lifetime. It sets you up for a lifetime of problems. Let your kids be barefoot as much as possible.
Well, can I ask you, what do you think of stride, and I hate to, I do this all the time. I can extend this for hours. But anyways, what do you think of stride right then and the initiative to put my kids in fancy shoes and that's going to improve their ability to walk? That almost, taking your message and digesting it, that almost seems like not only brainwash, but close to criminal advertising kind of thing going on. If we're really going to be scientists in society and practice responsible science or actually digest the facts, that almost seems criminal to tell me to put my kids in shoes that are ultimately going to be limiting.
I agree with you. I think it's almost criminal too. It is absolutely wrong. The best thing for it takes about 8 to 10 years for your child's foot to fully develop, and the worst thing you can do for the development of that foot is put them in a shoe. Let them go barefoot. They'll have strong, healthy feet for a lifetime.
Well, hey, from now on, I'm going to think about it. I just unshoed two children, myself and a wife. I'm sure I'm going to tell her all about it. Thank you, Nickie, for having me on. Freedomizer, I really like this, guys. I'm going to go ahead and take off now and take care of the kids.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, PJ.
And another one more comment, just for the fun of it, because this is one thing kids don't get to experience anymore, is let them go put their feet in the mud, wiggle their toes in sand. Actually do that, because it's something we used to do when we were kids. And there's little things that we truly miss out on and that were a part of everyone's childhood. And now it's just not the case, like just running around in nothing but a diaper, you know?
I agree. I agree with you 100%. You know, I see people, I have actually seen people who would wearing flip-flops or something and have the shoe off for some reason, but they're standing on one flip-flop and they're brushing something off their foot or something, and then they have to switch and put on the other flip-flop and do their other. They can't let their foot, it's like if you touch the ground with your foot, you're going to instantly die or something. We have kids in college who have no experience of running around barefoot as a child. That is so sad.
It very much is. People aren't kids anymore. We're no longer allowed to be people because we need to be controlled so that whatever future is planned, because this doesn't really matter because we can change all of this. We are strong enough. We are very powerful, and that's what they don't want you to know. That's why they send all this fear and everything else that's happening, because they don't want you to know that you have the ability to heal yourself just with thought. And actually, science is starting to catch up to this fact. And it's been quite interesting. Now, have you ever seen it? It was called What the Bleep Do We Know Further Down the Rabbit Hole? And it was talking about how science, it's such an amazing film. And it's something that it has to do with like quantum, and I know it's a little far out there for a lot of people to understand because we're in a linear existence and it's hard to imagine something being everywhere and nowhere and one and not, you know, but only because we're paying attention to it does it act in a way that we would expect. Not that it was obeying any other law before, but only when our observing it does that happen.
Yes. Right, correct.
Yeah, and so it's kind of amazing that, okay, if you just take that simple understanding and know that all you have to do is focus on something, pay attention to it, and you can change it to what you believe. So as long as that's the placebo effect, you know? You can get a placebo and it works as long as you believe it.
Yeah, but one other thing that plagues us Americans, though, is that we tend to be so opinionated, and we'll form an opinion and hold to it pretty fastly. People, you challenge people like the Baskin Robbins. You know, why do I have to have shoes on here? And they don't know why, but they just have this opinion, and then they'll go to all kinds of illogical scenarios to try to defend it instead of just trying to think reasonably through it.
Exactly. They're doing that with gun laws here in Texas because, see, that's the big thing about what's in the Constitution and the amendments is the right to bear arms, the right to show as you carry, not to conceal. And now they confused you to make you believe that you have to have a concealed gun license to even carry a gun. If not, then it's illegal. And they have these menacing billboards that tell you to, if you see a gun, report it. You never know. You know, fear your neighbor. Oh no, fear them.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible thing when you start turning the citizens, into the eyes of the state. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, so don't walk barefoot in Walmart anymore because they have the cameras at the front of the registers that'll tell you to report any suspicious behavior. Anybody that looks out of what you would consider normal, report to security and police.
Right.
So no more in Walmart.
Yeah, I don't shop at China Mart anyway, so that doesn't bother me one bit.
But if people you define what's normal, and then anything that's not that, you're going to turn them into the police. It's just crazy. You know, it was the funniest story when I was on my book tour this summer. I was in a Barnes and Noble. I can't remember. I think it was in Texas actually. I was in a Barnes and Noble in Texas, and a police officer came into the store. And the manager happened to be, he was standing there with me as we were at the book signing. Police officer came in and said that someone had called him to that store because they had definitively seen the Barefoot Bandit in that Barnes & Noble bookstore. And I'm like, well, could it be me? I just wrote a book. No, he's the Barefoot Bandit because he wasn't wearing any shoes.
There was actually a string of robberies out here where this guy robbed a bunch of banks barefoot. I think he robbed 3 of them successfully. So that actually happened. That's what they named it, was the Barefoot Bandit. I've never seen that before. I think that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that, even in written history. Bank robber Barefoot. He made it successful 3 times. I don't know if they ever caught him.
Yeah. Yeah, they caught him.
Yeah, but you know what? You've got, not a smart thing to do. I think if I was going to rob a bank, I would wear gloves and shoes because your hands have fingerprints and your feet have footprints. And those are the only 2 places on your body where you have prints, but they can identify you with them.
Yeah, well, technically we could have butt prints and face prints, but nobody wants to go through the time that it was required.
We don't actually have fingerprints anywhere on your body except your fingers and your toes.
But they're a lot more sensitive. The tips, even correct, even the tips of your toes as opposed to, I don't know, the back of your finger. The tips are just super sensitive. I always picture, if you look really close, like the way they would show Spider-Man with the tingly little hairs, you know? And in a way, it kind of is like that. It's just a sensitive, I don't know, each cell has its own serious nerve ending attached to it, I swear.
Yeah. Right, and also, I didn't hear anyone mention about how you get more vitamin D if you go stand outside and you can go for a nice barefoot walk in the park and collect all that vitamin D off the grass as well as the sun.
Well, I never heard about, really, from the grass. That's new to me. So
I'm just saying, if you're going for a walk, I mean, you're standing out there in the sun, you might as well go collect your vitamin D.
Well,
instead of buying tablets for it.
Absolutely.
I never knew that. I thought, because the skin is the largest organ on the body, hence why it absorbs off the heavy metals in our water or from the chemtrails that are on the ground. And that's another thing. All this poisoning from the ground. Sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
You know, who mentioned that, you know, I was thinking about the collar that was in and the arches and that kind of thing, and someone mentioned a back brace, wearing a back brace or something like that.
Yeah, that was me. I was making a joke.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, those things have gone out of style. They're not in vogue anymore, and the reason is because a lot of businesses where, you know, people were lifting things and the employees were wearing these routinely, they were getting more injury. And as you think about it, the reason is pretty much like why shoes called fallen arches. It's a cast, and it actually weakens the muscles in your back and makes you more prone to injury. And they were discovering that people are actually getting less injuries if they don't wear these back braces.
Exactly, and it doesn't even leave it there. If you continue to wear glasses, your eyes actually get worse. If you keep hindering your bodies, and yes, if you sit down, your muscles atrophy, right? It's simple things. You have to keep things in use for them to actually be able to work on the way they originally designed. If not, then you have to build that practice up again. And it's simple things, and it even includes what you eat actually helps your feet. I mean, and I know you have, being even a biochemist, you want to go in a little bit about that? I mean, food is a big deal. Especially with the poisons that are being spread in the air actually seep into the grounds that we walk and the food that we eat that it comes from. That in itself damages everything.
Yeah. It's pretty complicated in terms of making any direct connections between diet and your feet, other than, you know, with the bones and things like that. But certainly, you know, eating well and kicking off your shoes is going to lead to stronger muscles and bones in your feet and better health.
Very well said. We're at the half hour, so I'm going to take a quick break and play some more ads to make sure that Proof is happy since he's here with us, of course. So hang in there, Freedomizers, and we will be right back.
Welcome on. Your boy Johnny and Karen, Army Girl. Wait, are your ho.
Join Karen and Johnny on Armed with Iron on Tuesday on Freedomizer Radio, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Mountain Time, 11 p.m. Central Time, and midnight on the East Coast.
Right after Proof, negative.
Hey everyone, America is in deep, deep you-know-what because we don't know our rights. If you don't know your rights, you don't use them. Don't use them, you lose them. Learn your rights the easy way with the Freedom Calendar. It tells all. The Freedom Calendar is the best educational tool in over 200 years. The Freedom Calendar shows you how to use your rights. The Freedom Calendar shows how to answer any bureaucrat and how to use your guaranteed rights for true freedom. The Freedom Calendar has more information than a lifetime of schooling. One is only $15. Quantity discounts, great for fundraisers and business promotions. The Freedom Calendar, call 651-771-5234. That's 651-771-5234, 651-771-5234. And check out our website at www.freedomcalendar.com.
Howdy, folks. Buford T. Slaughter here. As part of my continuing rehabilitation and in conjunction with my anger management coach and my parole officer, I am required to do community service in the form of public service announcements. The TSA needs you. If you're the kind of guy that doesn't mind looking at naked boys and girls as they walk through the naked body scanners, or if you don't mind pulling an 82-year-old grandma out of her wheelchair, beating the heck out of her, make sure she's not carrying any bomb-making equipment, and if you don't mind taking people that object to this kind of treatment, slapping the heck out of them, pulling them in the back room, and strip searching them, then the TSA is for you. The TSA is hiring men and women to work at numerous locations around the United States, and the only qualifications are you must have longer than average index fingers, be able to sit and stare at a screen while naked people walk in front of you, and be able to take orders without any questions whatsoever. So, if you're interested in the TSA, please call 1-800-BROWN-SHIRT. 1-800-BROWN-SHIRT. And on a personal note, when the TSA does frisk you as you're going through the airport security, it is an act of love for the U.S. government. It is not an act of rape. So please do not beat them up. Thank you for your time.
You are listening to Freedomizer Radio, where Freedomizers freedomize freedom.
All right, Freedomizers, Nickie Nix here with you again as we try to rise above dehumanization. And I still have the Barefoot Professor with me. Bruce here for a moment. I don't know if he's just going to drop off or say goodbye or any of that. I'm not completely sure, but his mic is on in case he's listening. And
no, I'm here just for a minute. I have to go. My roommate's moving, and I have to go drop her off at the local station here. So I will be back hopefully in time for Dr. Prepper's show in the next 20 minutes. So please stay tuned for that. Daniel, it's a pleasure having you on our network, and we've booked Daniel for the 25th on the Proof Negative show.
Yep, looking forward to that.
Right, so that'll be a Tuesday, so check us out, and we'll be back. All right, go ahead, you guys. Have fun, and don't say anything I wouldn't say.
Too late.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
all right, everybody, that was Proof Negative, and of course, he should be back for the next show, which is Survival Cooking with Dr. Pepper. And you can always check out all the other great hosts that we have here at www.freedomizerradio.com. And we have, I think, currently at least more than 9 hours of live shows per day. So if I'm wrong, that's cool. Call me and tell me, 347-324-3704. And we are still talking here with Professor Howell. And so, teaching kids, how did you seriously get the name? Because since your school makes you wear shoes, where did the name come from? Was it there or was it before? Or?
Where did I?
Your name, the Barefoot Professor?
Oh, Barefoot Professor. No, that was my student. My student, it was probably, I don't know, 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. I guess about 4 years ago when I really started barefoot running and was taking a lot of my students out for hikes. We were going barefoot hiking. And, and they knew I was doing a lot of barefoot hiking, barefoot running, and just barefoot stuff. And somewhere along the way, some of the students started calling me the Barefoot Professor, and it kind of stuck, and I like it.
I do too. I think it's awesome. I'm all for people being people and maybe connecting a little bit more with what they are and hopefully the world around them as well. And maybe we could actually have an influence. And it takes, sadly, someone of such great credentials as with the PhD as we have with our guest here to actually have any influence on most people because, you know, we just won't believe ourselves anymore.
I know.
So when did your book come out? And did you have to be talked into it, or were you quite eager to do this one?
The book?
Yes.
The book came out in July 2010, and I never intended to write a book. It was my students asking me all kinds of questions. You know, I do love that about college students. They do ask questions. The good ones do. And they were always asking me, why do you run barefoot? Why do you hike barefoot? Why do you, avoid shoes so much? What is it you don't like about them? And, for a while I just gave, the answer that, well, I just prefer to go barefoot. I never really thought about all the reasons why, but I wanted to give them a better answer than that. I wanted to give them a good answer. I suspected that there was a good answer, and that there were good reasons not to like shoes. And so I
was a discovery for yourself.
It was. So, and I began just doing a lot of internet research, honestly. And after gathering specifically to answer their questions, it just evolved into a book.
That is, it's seriously amazing. For the simple fact that, that's how true moments in life that affect our lives and where we go and in turn affect the people that are around us and truly change our environment. It's little things like that that we tend to ignore until you get pushed into a corner to do it.
Correct, yeah. People...
And you may have felt it before, but it was like, you ignore it. It's like, when you have a dream and it's about the future and stuff that, that doesn't happen. That makes you insane. You're crazy. So you keep ignoring it, but it keeps kicking you in the butt, telling you, hey, looky here.
Yeah.
That's great. See, that actually, that should tell you something, that anybody can actually change where they go in life. And all it takes is maybe just looking for some answers. You don't have to go out there wanting to change the world to actually make a difference. You don't have to see this overwhelming oppression and say, I'm going to stay home today. Instead, look out and say, look at this beautiful world. Ignore everything else. I've been saying this lately, but I still love it because I just picture it in my mind every time I think about this. Everything that happens, if you've ever watched The Simpsons, which these are one of the classic episodes, so it doesn't have to be recently, but it was when there was an ion storm. It was one of the Halloween episodes, and they brought all the billboards to life. And how did you get it, that oppression and all that bad things to go away? The power comes with our observation and how we react to the world. So what do we need to do? Stop letting this control system turn our backs, maybe do what we want to do, be people. Actually be people. We don't need shoes. So much is better because seriously, if you go outside running, this is one thing. Think about traction. They put so much into the bottom of shoes and running shoes just for that reason. And then what they do is they try to emulate the foot.
Yeah, well, the foot, there's no shoe that has improved the design of the foot. The foot works beautifully, and shoes only interrupt the way the foot works. There's no doubt about that. But you know what I've learned? I love students, and in this process, some personal journey. In this process, people often talk about how wonderful a good teacher was in their life and how a good teacher changed their life. But you know what? Teachers are changed by their students too. And I would have never written this book if it had not been for my students and my students asking me questions. And, so I owe a lot of this really to my students.
And I was going to say something because but I didn't want to interrupt your last statement, before this one you just made. For the simple reason, it was just a beautiful statement. But when you stated the fact that your students were asking you questions and it was a beautiful thing, it actually, I had to hold back. But it was a simple fact that that's exactly what is crushed today in most schools or in school districts, which is why I'm at home with my son. It's just, you don't have to like accept everything that's around you. You can actually, the whole idea of money or achieving something for this status to be accepted by the people next to you is not the way we need to be. And I think what's happening right now is that maybe society has reached that peak and we can't get any further. And the reason why jobs aren't coming right now is maybe because there really aren't a need for them, because we have reached a point to where we don't need to work for money. We have the technology and a lot of other things that can take care of what's happening here now and still provide for us, and not only us, but those that they ignore across the globe. Because we have the technology and there's more space than anybody will ever imagine. And it's so crazy, this overpopulation and everything else that they want to say keeps us here. But we are so much greater for realizing something that makes us us. And if we ignore what's happening here and now, then our reality comes to be. And 2011, I don't care what anybody thinks. You can call me crazy, because if that means not adhering to what's considered normal, sorry, I'll stay there. And if you want to keep going with words, what about the word lunatic? If you want to look at its original meaning, it had nothing to do with being insane. It had to do with those who worship the moon instead of the sun. It's this polarity again. We're red, we're blue, we're Republican, we're Democrat, we wear shoes, we don't. And that's just, it's the separation. And if you do take off your shoes and you actually get out and feel the world, then maybe you can actually want to be a part of it. And maybe you will have a response like the great professor here, because he actually is grateful for questioning students. Now, how often have you gone to a parent-teacher conference and heard that from a teacher? Instead, you're going because the student questioned. You don't want questions when they're just trying to make you pass a test. Much respect.
Well, I agree. I mean, we have this idea of authority and hierarchy, but, you know, we need to listen to each other and we need to learn from each other, and we can all be better people if we do that.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. Just like you said, you don't have to go barefoot all at once. It takes small steps, you know. You don't have to go cold turkey or jump in the deep end, you know. And if you're
I know people that have gone cold turkey and said, I'm not going to wear shoes anymore, and they've gone for weeks or months. You don't have to do that. You can take off your shoes for a few minutes more today than you did yesterday, and just let your feet be free, get them a little bit of exercise, and walk around a little bit, take the dog for a walk, you know, barefoot. You can just take it.
That's your sound, let the dogs out for a walk. One thing that you're just talking about, would you mind if I shared the videos on your YouTube channel? Because those help with, just as a resource for anybody here? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'm pulling it up now, so let me think of what else to say. I'm trying to focus. Hey, what was the most interesting place that you would have thought would have allowed you to go barefoot that actually caused more of an issue? What about, like, family members going into houses? And because sometimes you see the opposite. It's kind of funny. You see some people that tell you to take your shoes off before you walk through the door, and others you better not, because they don't know what yeah, exactly, the germaphobes or people that are afraid for anybody else to touch something. Where was the weirdest place that seriously you were kind of asked to put on shoes when you didn't expect it?
A place where I was asked to put on shoes and I didn't expect it.
Yeah. Besides the plane, because that's just odd.
I'm sorry, what?
Besides the plane, because that is just odd.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I was at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and it turns out that Dollywood does not have a shoe rule. Their rules for the park are listed on their website, and they have no shoe rule. In fact, there's a number of rides where you're not allowed to wear shoes. But I think one of the most interesting places where I was denied service, if you want to put it that way, because I was barefoot, was on one of the rides at Dollywood. I actually got on the ride, it's kind of like that airplane. I was on the ride, and the operator said, "You got to get off because you're not wearing shoes." Okay, well, here's what's crazy about it. It was a water ride. It was a water ride. You're going to get wet, and your feet are going to get wet, and that's part of what the ride is all about, is getting wet. But I had to have shoes on to be on this water ride, apparently. So I had to get off because I didn't have any shoes with me.
Oh, that is amazing. Just to bring the water ride. That reminds me, Proof told me a story once, and I hope he doesn't mind me repeating this story. But he was at I guess, an amusement park that's actually at the top of casino, apparently. It's like 10 stories up at least. There's like a large roller coaster. And he had gone there on the top of the roof. And they told him he had to have shoes, and everybody else as well. So he had to get flip-flops and still rode it. And it was like one of those Superman rides where your feet are dangling anyway because you're so high in the air. So it was like an extreme ride. So all these shoes had been flying off. Seriously, like they had sent people down on a regular basis to go collect shoes, yet they required them on this roller coaster.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what people are thinking sometimes when it comes to, like
safer. It was in the manual. Don't rip this tag from the mattress or the government will come get you.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm so encouraged because the pendulum, we've been talking about this pendulum swinging, and we have gone way too far in this country, and people are, beginning to wake up and say, you know what, shoes are just shoes, and going barefoot is just barefoot, and it's no big deal. In fact, it's healthy, and it's fun, and it's good for you. So let's lighten up. I really am seeing a change, and I'm hoping that this year, 2011, is going to be the year of barefoot living. I talked about this on my blog. My latest post was, 2011, the year of barefoot living, because last year, so many people began barefoot running. And even if you don't run, and you don't run barefoot, I can guarantee you almost everyone has heard about barefoot running. And so it's in people.
If not, how can you not? Running barefoot, how do you not hear about something like that?
Right, yeah. But it's beginning to get into the American consciousness, and people are beginning to wake up to going barefoot is better. So I'm really looking forward to summertime. In 2011, I think we're going to see a lot of bare feet.
I'm with you there because it's not only barefoot, there's a lot of exciting things, and the energy that can be felt here now. And it's so odd because it literally happened on like January 1st, just this new kind of, I don't know, there's this new energy. I don't know how else to explain it. And I'm sorry, people, I'm still trying to put so many images into actual understandable words. So, but when you feel with the earth, what's going on with the earth, this change, this growth, this whatever 2012 you want to call it, if the earth is going through a change and we are a part of this earth, then we feel it too, or at least those that maybe are listening feel it. And whether it's breathing in and out, whether it's going through a positive or ripping apart as it gives birth to a new reality, whatever is happening right here and now, that energy is great. And this year right now is the time for change, is the time for us to actually influence the world around us. And this is the time I think that we will actually come to that collective understanding on the conscious mind. And so I have much faith that will happen. That is something that I felt it since then, and that's what I've been pushing big time lately. And that's great to hear. And I did put the link in there, and I'll put it one more time in case anybody missed it. That's his YouTube channel, and it has 3 videos right now. It has the trailer, your uploads. It has the trailer that we played earlier, so you can actually watch the video, which you'll see a lovely lady's legs. So hey, and it shows you basically what exercising to actually give back. Like, don't give up if you think that there is no hope, because the body is an amazing thing, and the human is an amazing thing. And here's a PhD professor to tell you the same, correct? Or not. That's cool.
Yeah.
But, so your videos are like basic exercises, at least the other 2, besides the promo.
It's yes. I have some that describe some of the anatomy of the foot, that kind of thing. I actually am thinking of putting up a series of videos. I've got an idea for a series of videos that I want to do that are just educational, how the foot works, and some things to encourage people to go barefoot a little bit more often. I've got some ideas of things that I want to do, and I might put those up in the near future. But that's still something I'm just kind of playing around with in my head.
And it's also something that most people tend to overlook, maybe because we don't actually, it's not in our perception, our actual visual perception on a normal basis because it is below us. So we tend to forget things we don't see, and we ignore the fact that what would happen if you just really injured your feet? I mean, we seriously take small things for granted that give us so much ability and so much even sensation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and people say with the feet, I've always had fairly healthy feet, but I've gone barefoot a lot. And but you've heard the saying, if your feet hurt, your whole body hurts. Yeah. And I certainly know people that have had some serious foot problems, and it makes their whole life miserable.
And it's the other way. If they're hurt somewhere else, they can actually use the foot to heal that other area.
Yeah. Yeah, but I really do believe, and I sincerely believe that shoes and our overuse of shoes constitutes a public health hazard, to be honest with you. We're really hurting ourselves by this constant use of footwear, and we need to get out of them and just go barefoot a little bit more often. And it's such a shame that we're having to fight this cultural battle because it's so good for you physically. It's like we're just trying to get people to stop smoking. And I know it takes time, but people are beginning to waken up.
And it should be a person's choice, not their parents' choice. That's the thing. We always take smoking and everything else, but that reaches once you are considered an adult.
Well,
but we make this decision for our kids.
It certainly should not be Baskin-Robbins' choice. It certainly should not be U.S. Airways' choice. It should be my choice.
Very much so, and there's nothing wrong with looking. Everybody wants to look at something that they're not used to seeing. Maybe ask a question. Looking, people tend to just, the thing is we ignore what we don't understand, and we automatically fear it, and it becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just because we don't understand.
That's exactly right. But again, that leads to the reason why I'm so encouraged. The reason why I'm so encouraged is because people are beginning to understand. There are articles on the internet regularly. You see a new article on the internet about going barefoot or barefooting or somebody who lives a barefoot lifestyle. And the comments that you get on those articles, they appear to be changing to me. In the past years, a lot of times people would be very negative and very judgmental and very mean, to be honest with you. Nowadays, especially in the last 6 months, you still have some people say that, but for every one person that has a negative comment, you have 10 people saying, well, you know what, going barefoot is actually healthier for you. You know what, going barefoot actually is a fun thing to do and a safe thing to do and a legal thing to do. So there's a lot of people who are getting educated on this, and it's beginning to snowball, and that's why I'm so encouraged.
Exactly, and when you have someone here like Professor Howell, who is a doctor, a real doctor, PhD, and teaches kids now anatomy, knows about the foot, knows the importance of all the body parts as well. I mean, it's a whole. We are one entity and one being, and part of this is important, but we ignore it. And that's why it's so important to have this kind of information out, because it is about information, because that is power, not money, not this false paradigm we're being taught, Republican, Democrat, right, wrong, because it's all a matter of perception. Do what feels good to you. And if you don't know what feels good to you, then just stop, relax, take a deep breath, and maybe work on that first. But seriously, take your shoes off, at least when you go inside. Please, it helps. So, you want to give your websites, if you want to hang in for a few more minutes, we're waiting on Proof to get back and for the next show to start. So they should be here pretty quickly. They might be a couple minutes late. So if you want to hang in, that's cool. But if you want to go ahead and give your information to those that are here for the end of the show, that would be great. And any contact info they could reach you in case they're curious about your book or maybe going to school?
I think, the barefootbook.com, I have, I have some email addresses there and that kind of thing. If people are interested in knowing more, I love getting email. I love answering people's questions. I'm on Facebook. They can look up Daniel Howell, Barefoot Professor, whatever. If people are interested, if you, I would love to come give talks. I do give talks, and I love going to places to give talks. If you're in college, if you're a student in college, if you're a professor in college, and you want me to come to your school and talk, I love coming, or even high school, elementary schools. I don't care, because especially with school, whether it's college or elementary school, I love talking to people about it because I think it's so important for our children to get out of shoes as much as possible. I really do want to see schools stop mandating footwear on our kids. And so I'd love to come out and talk. It's at barefootbook.com, drdanielhowell.com, my blog, barefootprofessor.com. All of those websites are good ways to follow me and get in touch with me.
And of course, you will be joining Proof again pretty quickly here. The 25th is what you said, correct?
Yep.
Something like that. It's on a Tuesday, yep, 25th. And he'll be there with Unituber, which I heard she's quite excited to meet you soon. So people, it's always nice to have someone who's intelligent that unless you have a nice argument and you can disagree with this, then hey, we welcome it. I'd love to see someone come up with a legitimate reason why none of this is at least worth looking into for yourself, and make up your own mind what works for you. But the health benefits alone and the health benefits for the world and the society around us, I think are extremely, at least, worth looking into. So, like I said, this is Professor Daniel Howell, the Barefoot Professor, and I dropped in a couple of links real quick. And if you go right above the chat room in Blog Talk Radio, there is a picture, an image of his book. You click on that book and it will take you directly to Amazon.com, where you can even get a sample chapter through the Kindle program. And don't worry, if you have a PC, Kindle does download to your PC as a free download, and so does the sample chapter. But I'm not a seller of Kindle. I got a few books. I was kind of happy with it, but it came on the PC as well. I'm so happy I actually got to talk to you this time.
Yeah. That's better. We can hear each other better this time, so yeah.
Very much so. And of course, I'll be around for Proof Negative's show, and I look forward to speaking to you again as well. And if, like I said, if you want to hang out, that's up to you. I know I've taken your time for 2 hours now.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I love talking to you, so thank you.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to actually play a quick song. We're going to play a quick song, and right back when I say what I'm going to play, I think I'm going to, okay, I got the censored version, people, and I say that because I once had an uncensored version, and if Doc was in the room, he'd understand, but here's the censored one.